thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here this afternoon, and I have to say I feel incredibly honored to have the opportunity to have a conversation in such an incredible environment. I always refer to Pepperdine as Disneyland because of the view. Just whenever I'm here with my son, I just find this just such an extraordinary place, and a great center of learning, but what a view and what an incredible place. So great to be here on such a beautiful day, especially getting out of the east. Kentucky is a little bit colder at this time of the year. A little bit about YUM Brands, just to quickly give some grounding. Exactly as Michael said, YUM Brands is a very large company. We're capitalized now at about 33 billion. We have 38,000 restaurants, operate in about 120 countries around the world. So very good, very successful business. For the historians, we were spun off from PepsiCo in 1997. We were then the fast food component of the PepsiCo group. We were spun off in our own right. And since 1997, we've had a fantastic run. We've delivered earnings per share performance of over 10% every year, literally since we spun off, which puts us in a very small elite group. The stock price has responded accordingly. The stock is, I think, 8 times what we spun off for in 1997. And so from a commercial, from a business standpoint, it's doing all the right things, and it's a fantastic story. The growth is extraordinary as we open up in all these countries around the world, and we continue to grow at this rapid rate that sees over 60% of our earnings now coming from outside of the United States and rapidly growing. That number will be 70%, I think, in a very short period of time. We do that by opening new restaurants, and at the moment our run rate is we are opening a new restaurant somewhere in the world every 5 hours. So we are opening a new restaurant every 5 hours. With that, we employ a lot of people, but with that comes the social responsibility and accountability. And so I guess the question is, big, strong, global organization, something that I think shareholders feel really good about. We're certainly doing all of the right things from a corporate business standpoint. The question is, how does that connect with corporate social responsibility? How do we feel within the company about what we're doing? And do we feel that we're contributing in a positive way? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. And while we're quite different in many respects from the companies that I had an opportunity to listen to both Tom and Sally earlier on, what they were both saying absolutely lives and breathes within the companies. Big companies need exactly the drivers that I was listening to in the entrepreneurial piece. So Tom was talking about passion and drive. And I'll tell you that big corporations die when they become bureaucracies. They're successful when there's a passion and a drive from the people within. And if the people don't passionately believe about the products and the connection with the people working around them, you fail. So having that passion is so important. And I loved what Sally said, that what's going on in corporate social responsibility now will be a defining moment. You'll either be on the wrong side or you'll be on the right side of what's going to occur in the next decade. And absolutely, I completely believe that. And I would tell you that all of my work colleagues have very quickly, over the last decade, I would say, migrated into that. And I'd say that as my final comment. I wouldn't have said 10 years ago that I was a greenie or felt that corporate social responsibility was at the top of my mind. And as I've spent time, I've started to understand more and more this fundamental rule, which is that being good in corporate social responsibility is not just about doing the right thing, but it's actually become doing good business. And my message is that if you're not following the corporate social responsibility agenda now, you will not be doing good business. In fact, your business will suffer. You will see profits and you will see sales growth suffer as a result of not doing that. Now, I like that analogy, feet of clay. You can't do everything overnight. You have to set out, have a clear strategy, clear sense of direction, and set out to do the right things. And the question is, what is the strategy, and how do we think about this in YUM Brands? Well, we think about it in 4 ways. We talk about our environment, we talk about our food, we talk about our people, and we talk about our community. And they are all priorities for us. And believe me, when I tell you at the highest levels within YUM, we spend a significant amount of time on these conversations. In global strategic time and meetings that we have, they take up a good chunk of the time in which we spend talking about them. So why would you take the time to think about these things? Why do you have to invest in that? And the point is, it's really good business. And I'm going to illustrate that by taking each of these priorities and then within each priority picking one of the items and talking about, giving you a sense of why it's good business and why not doing it can be incredibly damaging. And I like to think of CSR as both offensive and defensive. Some of the things we do are defensive. If we don't do them, we're going to be punished for it, and it will impact our business. And some of the things are offensive. If we do them, it gives us competitive advantage, and it drives consumers and employers to feel better about you and drive your business. So let's go through each of the cards. So I'll start on the environment. The headline are, we really attack this under 5 things. We look at efficient energy and water use. We've heard a little bit about that today, and that's the one I'm going to pick and talk about because I'm very involved in that. We talk about green building standards. We are building LEED certified buildings all around the world. We've just opened one in India, we've just opened 2 in China. So we are taking the LEED certified model developed in the United States and we're pushing that out around the globe. Sustainable packaging is very important to us. Waste and recycling and how we manage and handle waste is important. And sustainable sourcing of building products, building materials, and generally everything that we do, thinking about the sustainable sourcing ramifications is very important. But let's take efficient energy and focus on that because I'm very engaged in this. I don't know if you know this, but around the world, electricity costs are exploding. Exploding. I would tell you there are very few countries in the world right now that are not seeing electricity costs grow, compound over 10% per annum. I would tell you that in some countries, I've seen the electricity cost in the last 2 years, in one of those years, jump by 25%. Now, energy is a very big part of what we do in restaurants. It makes a big, big chunk of the P&L. So, we know what the ramifications are of using less energy are from doing the right thing standpoint. Better carbon footprint, drawing less of the resources to deliver the same outcome. But from a business standpoint, reducing the electricity cost makes enormous business sense. And the work that we're now doing to drive that and bring that down is work that does the right thing, but drives a great business result. So I'll give you an example. Very simple. Change all the lighting. Use LED lighting. Change all the lighting in the car parks, incandescent lighting, using low wattages. Change how we put fryers and heat-generating cooking equipment within a restaurant to ensure that it sits exactly underneath the HVAC or the extraction processes so that that minimizes what we use. In France, I was just in our French stores, we've got solar panels on the roof. All of our LEED certified stores around the world starting to introduce solar panels, taking up some of the electricity load. Great for the environment, great way to do the right thing, significantly reducing electricity costs. We are finding in our lead markets now, we're able to reduce electricity consumption in some of our new stores by 25%. So when you have 38,000 restaurants and you're growing restaurants, a new restaurant every 5 hours, that's important. That's important for the environment, it's important for doing the right thing, but it's great for business. Take a second one, the food. Now, this is very interesting. There are a lot of debates about food, and believe me, we're in the center of all those debates. Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut, we don't miss. So the question is, what are we doing? Well, the way we think about this is what's really important from a food standpoint is choice, transparency, and improving the nutrition of our core products. Additional to that, we worry about food safety and quality. I run food safety globally. That's a big issue. As you open in countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Kazakhstan, how do you make sure that you have a great food source that can deliver reliable products that are going to improve your brands, not take them down? And finally, a very important question, ethical sourcing and supply. How do you ensure that what you're doing is ethical and moving in the right direction? And there are plenty of people out there who will tell you how important this is to them. Now here's the thing with food. I could give you a lot of examples about, we know that doing all of this is the right thing to do. There's no doubt in anyone in YUM's minds that this is the right thing to do. The question is, why is it good business? Well, I'll tell you, I'll start with the first one. Choice, transparency. A group of 4 people goes out to eat. 2 or 3 of them say, hey, let's do KFC or let's do Taco Bell. One person says, nah, I don't feel, the food's a little bit indulgent. I don't feel like having an indulgent meal today. Making sure that a third of our menu can deliver products, or a chunk of our menu can deliver products that meet a third of your daily food allowance makes a huge difference. Making sure we have grilled alternatives. So I was very involved in KFC in the launch of Kentucky Grilled Chicken. I'll bet you don't know this, but you can eat 2 pieces of Kentucky Grilled Chicken, potato gravy, green beans, and that is 395 calories. Okay, so being able to diversify your menu and create choice in a way that enables someone within the group to say, yeah, the person who used to be each other group saying, no, that sounds great, let's go, because they've got something in there for me. So driving against a nutrition agenda and making sure that we're able to accommodate groups is good business, and at the same time it's doing the right thing. I'll talk about our people, and I'll pick one topic. So one thing about YUM is we're actually quite well known for one thing. We have this very crazy culture. We have this YUM recognition culture. And we have all these funky awards. So I love the box of chocolates analogy from Sally. This is so on the money. So one of the things we do is we all have funky awards. So I used to have an award when I was in Australia running the Australian business. I had Mission Impossible. And so we give out awards to everyone and anyone in the business at any opportunity we get. So I had this bronze cast iron bomb from the original Mission Impossible movies, and I'd stick a spark in and light the fuse. And it used to, and I'd play the in the background, have an enormous amount of fun, and use it to recognize people at every possible opportunity. Unfortunately, after 9/11, it was very difficult getting that through the X-ray machines in airports, so I had to ditch the bomb. But everyone has these fun awards and funky devices. We have rubber chickens, we have all sorts of crazy stuff, teeth, whatever. But the underlying principle to that is to build this culture where we believe that telling people, everyone in the organization, that they're incredibly important, and we recognize what they do and what they do well, is what really creates a core and a foundation. Now, you could say, oh, well, that's okay. Everyone says the culture does that. What's different? We have 1.4 million people working for us around the world. A lot of people who come to us, it is their very first job in life. It's incredibly important. We have very detailed training. The industry, in many respects, is vastly misunderstood. To work in our industry, to come and learn the systems and to learn how to operate these stores, you have to be very broad and very generalist. Now, in a lot of places in the world, the people who come and work for us for the first time have come from disadvantaged backgrounds. They don't have access to education like this. They don't have access to tertiary education. In many respects, some of them don't have access to the closing stages of high school education. So what we found is there are so many gems among this 1.4 million population of people who work for us, that we found that by starting to institutionalize how we train, and actually starting to build into that how you can get a degree, and starting to offer degrees to the extent, and this will blow you away, and if it doesn't, it should. KFC in the UK was just announced in 2011 won Employer of the Year. When would you ever believe, against every other company, can a fast food company win Employer of the Year? And we won it because of core values, because of recognition, getting the culture right, putting training systems in place, but most importantly, finding a way to give people an opportunity to go all the way to a degree within the system. Now, we understand that not everyone stays with us, but that's an important thing. People feel great in our company about the fact that we are training people, whether they stay with us or move on, to do something bigger and better and create an opportunity they never otherwise would have had. And then finally, I'll talk about our community. There are three things that we do. We do something called World Hunger Relief. We are really big into volunteerism, and we're very big into local community engagement. Now, what we used to do around the world, everyone had their favorite charity and everyone was involved. I was involved in some medical research thing in Australia. Everyone had their thing, but we didn't really have a global pool. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our World Hunger Relief effort. What we decided is, if we're going to be the global company, the global defining company that feeds the world, which is our mantra, how would we go about it? That's our strategy. How would we go about delivering against that? And one thing we thought of is we can really make a difference in feeding the world. And we feed a lot of Americans in difficult situations. We probably feed, on average, in any year in the United States, 50 to 60 million meals go out. So whenever there's a flood or a crisis, our restaurants open up and the food goes out. We just tell people who are in need, in a very orchestrated way with the local charity groups, Red Cross, etc., we feed people. But that wasn't enough. We had to go out and do something very different. And what we did there is we got engaged in World Hunger Relief. There are so many people starving in the world. Here's one of the biggest contradictions in the world. There are 1.5 billion people in the world starving right now, and there are 1 billion people who are obese. Connect the dots. I mean, that's crazy. But those 1.5 billion people who can't get enough food, and have no access to that, that seemed like a pretty good cause for a global company that can make an impact on hunger. And so we set about doing that, and we engaged all of our people around the world to get on this. At first, there was a little bit of cynicism, and I was part of it. I was running Australia. It's like, come on, guys, we're running Australia. We need to do this. And then we got involved, and the passion and the energy around this is just ripping. It is fantastic. This year alone, we will have raised $30 million for World Food Program. This, by the way, the World Food Program is part of the United Nations effort to stop hunger in the world. It is targeted at children, young children, and also mothers with young children. I've personally been on missions into Honduras, I've been into El Salvador, and I've been into Nicaragua, and seen the work that's done. It's incredibly powerful, because if you don't get kids nutrition in the early parts of their lives, they never recover. You have to get it in the first 2 years. We have now raised $115 million on this program in 5 years. We have generated about 460 million meals, and we feel fantastic about it. Forget doing this for corporate. The company loves us. People are so passionate about this. If David Novak, our CEO, said tomorrow, we're not going to do this anymore, it wouldn't matter. We just keep doing it. Everyone is into it and they love us. Now, why is that important? Well, you get into the world of trying to get the smartest, brightest people to come and work in our industry. If you can't stand there and tell them that you're doing something that can change the shape of the world and change the direction, you will not recruit them. That's what good business is about. Good business is about, that's the good business component. It's about having the ability to tell people that we have a great story. Not only are we doing this, not only are we doing this work because we know it's the right thing to do, but it's about us. We're passionate about this. We believe in it. We've seen it with our eyes. And we really, really believe in this. Bright people coming out of great programs, coming out of schools like this, want to work for companies like that. That is a huge selling point. And so that becomes good business. So to close, my theme is very simple. We're attacking our CSR through a framework, our environment, our food, our people, and our community. And everything that we do within that, 10 years ago, maybe, maybe not, I will tell you there's not a single thing that we're doing under each of these pillars, under each of these priorities, that's not driving the agenda. That is not making us not only a company where we're doing the right thing, not only a company where we're feeling really good about it, but a company where we are driving a very good business result by doing the right things under CSR framework. So I'll stop there and be very open to answer any questions. So, over to you.
Come on up with your questions.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome.
Thank you, and I'm dying to talk to you more offline. A remarkable woman in India said to me last year that CSR is like teenage sex. Everyone says they're doing it, but only half are doing it, and of the half, only half are really doing it right. So I've embarked on a mission to figure out what doing it right looks like, particularly among the Fortune 500 global corporations that are behemoth organizations and really difficult to navigate through. And in fact, I'm doing my dissertation on this. And what I really want to know is, okay, so you have your framework of what you are about. How do you drive that through multiple subsidiaries, millions of employees, and different operations?
That's a great question. Very good. Thank you. Great question. It's actually done through a very business-like process. In big businesses, nothing happens by accident. And I've learned that. Coming from Australia, where I could stand in the corridor and shout to everyone, hey, I got a great idea, and they'd all laugh at me. That's how we could drive the business. When you get into a very big corporation operating all around the world, you have to be very clear about what the communication channels are, what the core messaging is, and what is the process to drive in what you really want to do. So, CSR. That framework is institutionalized in our annual planning process. And so everyone, as they deliver their sales and profitability plans that drive around what we do around innovation, how we market, how we drive our operational execution, all of the things you'd expect in a prototypical standard business plan is now layered in with what are we doing from a CSR framework. Here's the interesting thing, and this is what I've clicked in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, I think a lot of guys would have just gone through the motion. I think they would have filled in the form. It's exactly the point you're making. They would have filled in the columns and said, yes, we're doing this, tick, 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 tick. And you'd go out, and which I spend a lot of my time doing, and test the execution. Okay, you're saying you do this, so you're really doing it. I will tell you now that what has happened in YUM is there is a real energy around what we're trying to do in CSR. Everyone gets it. If you want the consumer to be on side with you, you have to be doing these things. And some of them are defensive. The consumer may not reward you for it immediately, but if they find you're not doing it, they will penalize you and put you into the penalty box really quickly. And then it takes a lot of money, a lot of work, and a lot of marketing to move yourself back out. So the first thing I'd say is it has to be institutionalized through the process and driven down. That's how you get to 1.4 million people. It's not accidental. You have to use the formal processes and channels that we use. Having said that, it comes back to passion. It's the point that was made earlier by Tom. If you don't capture the hearts and minds of the leaders and get them as passionate about this as we are, it won't go there. But I will tell you, what's interesting is I cannot think of a country in the world where people aren't under pressure from a consumer standpoint, from an employee standpoint, to not do these things. I would say the degrees of execution are different. Some countries we're stellar, other countries we're getting there. I love the feet of clay. I think we all wish we could be moving much faster around it. But the passion is there, the process is there, and as a result of the process, the follow-up mechanisms are there. So how do you audit on an ongoing basis that what you're saying you're doing? And we're very good at that. That's why we're building and able to grow at the rate we're growing. So I hope that answers the question.
So we just have 5 minutes, so I'll just ask a couple of questions to finish. The first is your point of view on this unique, progressive, and again, what the unit of analysis I'm looking at is, say, the top 250 corporations in the world in terms of revenue. So is this something, a common denominator in your circle of peers? That's the first question. The second question is, we have graduates, here at Pepperdine through this program, SEER. Often they say, well, okay, I've learned this. I want to embed my values into this, into where I go. Should they be thinking about going in CSR, or should they be going in as finance majors, as engineers, and infecting the hive that way? What is their best avenue?
That's very good. Let me answer the question separately. The first question about are we pioneering? Absolutely, we're not pioneering. The CSR frameworks have been out there. People are very clear about it. I think the thing we pioneer at is we have an amazing global culture. And what is it unique about our culture is that the kind of people we employ and how we go through very restrictive recruitment processes to get certain type of people to work for us around the world. And there's a certain style of person that we like. And typically they're very bright. Typically they've got relatively low levels of ego. They're very team-oriented people. Those kind of people have grabbed this. And I think if we're pioneering in the sense that our culture is grabbing this, and I think we're pushing it to a different level as a result. There are no companies that can claim to be, we are the largest corporate contributor to the United Nations because of the amount of money we raised for the World Food Programme. So the pioneering aspect of that has, in my mind, been driven by the amazing culture that we have and that's been created, which has grabbed this group of people who have taken it from a checklist to a passion. I think that's the first one. The second question about what should I do as an MBA student? I love that question. I love that question. And I'll tell you, it tied to something else. I think Tom, said it earlier about, so why am I doing an MBA? Am I doing it because I want to learn how to make a lot of money? Or am I doing it because I want to make a difference and leave a legacy? And how do I put that in? I will start in a completely different place. Because I actually mentor a lot of young folks. A friend of mine helps kids go into college, and he sends me one or two of them every now and then who need to grab some direction on what they really want to do. And the thing that I think is the most important thing is the inner instinct, and it's that passion. And I actually take people around YUM and I show them different functions. I go, this is engineering, and this is what we do in marketing, here's the law team, and they make sure these franchise contracts are up. And I watch the eyes. And if the eyes go bing and wide open, I go, that's really interesting. There's some passion in there. And if they go, yeah, that's really interesting. No, that's not where you are. That underlying passion is what really makes people successful. So if you can find someone who's incredibly passionate about something and can back it with the intellect and the ability to really take that and make it something, you have something very special. So I would say to everyone, start with that, and then inject into that the CSR. Here's the interesting thing. I'm in the consumer world. Everything we do has to start and be driven by the consumer, and the consumer gets it. Sometimes they get a little bit wrong, I think, but generally they get it, and they are really smart. And so I think that the CSR framework, for anyone to be successful in anything that you do, you are going to, by definition, have to inject the CSR framework into it. Because if you don't, the consumer's going to reject you. Your team members are going to say, you're not a really cool place, I don't want to join you. And you're not going to have the kind of corporate camaraderie that we all aspire to.